and your children are turned into mindless vassals who now they look up to some twit instead of looking up to Thomas Jefferson or looking up to Nikola Tesla or looking up to Magellan. I mean, kids, Magellan's a lot cooler than Justin Bieber. He circumnavigated with one ship the entire planet. He was killed by wild natives before they got back to Portugal. And when they got back, there was only like 11 people alive of the 200-something crew, and the entire ship was rotting down to the waterline. That's destiny. That's will. That's striving. That's being a trailblazer, an explorer, going into space, mathematics, quantum mechanics, the secrets of the universe. It's all there. Life is fiery with its beauty, its incredible detail. Tuning into it. They want to shatter your mind talking about Justin Bieber.
Uh-oh. Arnie boy, you just missed it. Showed up for his treat 30 seconds too late. Well, I can't leave him hanging. So what can we do here? What can we do here, Arnie boy? Let's I'll just be 20 seconds here. Okay. Okay, he's fed. He's happy. He got his morning treat, his duck jerky, and sweet potato. Anyways, hello out there. We're on the air. Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. It is time to do some humping today. This one's titled, what is it titled? Are Bitcoin companies about to become national banks? So I'm not going to lie to you. It is freaking one of the nicest days of the year here today. I was very, 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 very close to not doing a show today, and that's why we're a little bit late. I figured you could just, we could just sit in the sun for a while. We don't need to do a show today. But here we are. So let's make the best of it because it's pretty nice out there, not so nice in here. And so we got to make good use of our time here today. Hello to everybody on YouTube, on Rumble, and of course on Noster, on Zapstream. I don't know what happened to my voice here. I must have done too much talking yesterday. Did do a lot of talking yesterday. Big shout out to Mark. First one I see over in Zapstream this morning. He says, a great day to be a Bitcoiner. Amen to that. Every day is a great day to be a Bitcoiner, even though it's been kind of tough as of late. I think we're through it. I feel a lot better than I did yesterday. I let out a bit of anger, frustration, whatever you want to call it yesterday. But I'm in a much better place today. And it's August 12th. And apparently there's some sort of a specific energy involved with August. I think it was August 7th to the 12th. There was some sort of, what was it called? Lionsgate portal you could tap into. So I've been doing my best, but there's been lots to navigate here in the Bitcoin space lately, and it's time to turn things around. So today, August 12th, 2026, at the block height of 962,156 is officially the day we turn things around. Anybody on board with me there? I hope you are. It's a day we move past this stuff. It's a day we understand that as much as we want everybody to be aligned, and that's one thing I've always said is like, it's so easy to talk to Bitcoiners. It just feels different, especially in person. But I've come to see that not everybody's built the same. We are all human. As we talked about yesterday, people are always going to people. Bitcoin measures the volatility and the chaos that we have here as a species. And so I was a little bit naive in that sense. But it's time to move on. It's time to flip the page, and we got a lot of great days ahead of us here. like I said, we're halfway through August. And if you are in the northern hemisphere, like I am, we don't have much summer left. So that's part of it. You know, I saw the other day that there's what was it? If you're in your 40s, or if you're 40, which obviously is targeting my algorithm there, but it said, you know, based on life expectancy, half of your summers are gone. Crazy to think about, and it definitely puts things into perspective. You know, spending time on Twitter arguing, in the YouTube chats, comments, arguing, is just you're burning your most precious resource, which is time. And yeah, even after the show yesterday, I just went outside and left my phone inside, just sat outside for like an hour with Arnie, watched him. It was like watching a free movie, just watching him. You know, I don't know what it is about dogs, but I could watch them forever, no matter what they're doing. They just always put me in such a different headspace. Of course, you get a little bit of vibration from the earth. You get some sunshine coming down, and a good dog to hang out with beats the hell out of anything else. So I'd encourage anybody out there who's been feeling a little bit down about things lately. And, you know, it's much more than the price. I think that's what the common theme is right now. It's more than just the price being down, of Bitcoiners kind of vibes being low, because there's been lots of attacks, and whether that was coordinated or not, there's attacks from both sides, and it's tough. It takes a toll on you. But like I said, I feel like I've moved past that now. I'm ready for what's next. I still got some stuff to do before that happens, before we see the next leg up in Bitcoin in terms of the exchange rate and also the adoption. But you know, I really believe that we had to go through this to understand, you know, where we are, to recalibrate ourselves as a filter. We're going to lose some people after last week's activation, the hard fork coming. We're going to lose some people, but that's part of it. For the people we lost, we're going to gain probably 100x more over these next 6 months. So that's what we got to look forward to. And there's been some good news. I wanted to share some good news today, including Bitcoin companies becoming banks. And there's a guy by the name of Hal Finney. I don't know how many people here have heard of him. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, before we get into this, because I just saw this tab and I wanted to talk about it today as well. So I was actually doing a meeting with somebody yesterday. I had a consultation with I won't say their name, but anyways, we were talking about Bitrefill. We were talking about iPhones and Androids and Pixels, Graphene OS, and she said that she's looking into a Graphene OS phone. And so we were talking about phone numbers and data and all this kind of stuff. And I said, you know, when I went over to Prague, I used Bitrefill to purchase an eSIM, and it worked really well. I paid in Bitcoin, didn't have to put in my phone number, email address, name, maybe email address, but you can just use a burner for that. But anyways, I was telling her about Bitrefill. And so we were looking it up. And so I typed in Bitrefill in Google. And I don't know how well you can see this. Yeah, I guess you can see it pretty well. You won't be able to see my taskbar, or my address bar, I should say. But the top result when you type in Bitrefill, I wonder if this would be different. It is different. Oh, no, it's not. It's not different. So anyways, you can see here that this Bitrefill, it actually doesn't take you to bitrefill.com. It takes you to this website, bing.com/_gift_cards. So I click this. And this website looks like, oh, I didn't see that before. Okay, what's going on here now? Let's see. They must have got caught or something. But yesterday, so I clicked this. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh, now it says buy this domain. Wow. So between yesterday and right now, they had this fake bit refill. Wow, that's crazy. So I clicked this website here, the top search, and I shit you not, it looked identical. It looked identical to the bit refill website. But you can't see this, but my taskbar up here, it says this. I'll put it in the chat. Don't click that. But that's what the address is, this one. bitraffle.com. And it looked identical to the bit refill site. Everything, even like the little pop-up that came up, it was identical to the bit refill site. So I'm guessing that they scammed some people out of some sats. People probably just bought these fake gift cards for, I don't know how long they were up, but literally between yesterday at 11 o'clock, less than 24 hours, it looks like this site went down. Now it says buy this domain. So BitRaffle, that's where it took me to. And as soon as I saw it up top, I was like, something's strange about this. I thought maybe they changed their website or the domain or something. But anyways, then you go down to this one. And this is the bit refill site. So what I was talking about there is this. When I clicked that website yesterday, it looked identical to this. Identical. Even had this. Oh, can you see it? No. It even had this privacy settings pop up. So I'm going to tell you guys and girls something that you want to take very seriously here. As Sats and Sunset says here, never click sponsored links. Number one, that's good advice. But number two, always verify the address. So when you have something like BitRefill, who's been around for a while, they're very well known. They've been in the space for probably a decade now. That's their website right there, bitrefill.com. bitrefill.com. So there was actually another guy that I talked to last week who got tricked into logging into a Bitcoin custodian. We'll just call it that, a custodian. And so he clicked into it. He logged in. They had somebody phone him that was pretending to be from that Bitcoin custodian. Basically, he thought his phone got hacked, and it was somebody at a phone store when he was actually buying a new phone. He was transferring his information over. You know how they do that when you buy a new phone? So usually they do that with like a cable. The girl at the phone store said that his battery was too low for them to use the cord, so she had to actually upload the information to she used some fancy word, but it was like a web page. So anyways, they ended up stealing all his information, all of his contacts, all of his history, all of his apps, all of his information about everything. So then they phoned him the next day from Google saying that your phone's been hacked. Which apps or which accounts are sensitive? So he said this Bitcoin custodian. Next day, they phoned him from this Bitcoin custodian pretending to be the VP of IT or something like that. They tell him to go to this website. The website was exactly the same as the Bitcoin custodian regular site. The website looked a little bit different, and he said that. He's like, well, I didn't really think too much of it, though, because I was talking to somebody pretty high up at the company, right? So he logged into it using his login credentials, which they already had, presumably, if they had his phone. But then they tried to get him to send Bitcoin to essentially save his funds, recover his funds before the hackers got it. So he logged into the site. They gave him a Bitcoin address to send his Bitcoin to. Thankfully, his girlfriend or wife came in and said, hey, maybe you should just hold off on for a day. He did listen to her. Thank God for women. And anyways, the next day he actually phoned the Bitcoin custodian company and said, hey, just making sure, somebody called me here, want to verify that this person is legitimate. And they're like, we don't have any record of this person working here. So then he wanted to stall them for a while because, you know, he didn't want them to know that he knew that he was being scammed, just to, you know, buy some time to get some things together. Anyways, they ended up getting his whole contact list. They were texting his friends, his brothers, his sisters, saying that if you don't do this, we're going to cut your fingers off. We're going to kidnap you, all this stuff. He actually had to end his trip early because of this. So just be very, very, very careful when you're using websites, because it is so easy now to just create a website that looks identical to the website that you think that you're visiting. So just be aware, be careful. We have to have our guards up more than ever before, like 100x more than we ever have before. Do not trust anything. Do not trust anybody. And I know that that's horrible. It's a horrible way to live. But to save yourself the stress, the time, the anxiety, just verify everything. Everything. Especially if it relates to any sort of sensitive data and your Bitcoin. So I'm actually glad that I was going to talk about it today, but I forgot about it. So I'm glad that tab popped up there. So anyways, let's see who's here before we go any further. We got Sketchucation. Rich, drop a like as you join. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rich. Let's check on Rumble. How's Rumble doing today? How's Rumble doing? We got 40 people over there and we got 14 thumbs. Do better than that. If you're watching on Rumble, please press the thumbs up, leave a little comment in there, emoji, hello, good morning, anything. Let's hear from you over in Rumble. And same for YouTube. I'm on board with YouTube. I know that they've made some changes to their creators' earnings and stuff, but I've never looked at YouTube as like a way to make money. I've always looked at it as a way to just get my message out there. So I'm going to be more intentional, more careful with what I'm talking about on these streams. We're going to have a change probably next week, I think, as of now. What Sats and Sunsets? What show is this today? 83? 88 Fats putting bad links in the chat. I lost all my Bitcoins. What's up, Laughpad? Good to see you, buddy. Show 83. Okay. So 83. 485. Yeah. So next week we're going to have some updates to the channel here. It won't change much. Be a shorter show, but then we're going to have another show too, I think, by the sounds of it. We got another show coming. And so you're going to get about the same amount of time with me. Just it'll be split up into 2 different things. Because yeah, all this stuff that's happened these last couple of weeks have really lit a fire under my ass. And I'm just seeing things a little bit differently than I did. So we're going to push forward in a big way. And I need all of you folks here to help me with it. Strategy will be the biggest bank in the world. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. We've been talking about that around here for a while now. A whilst, some might even say. Let's see if I can find that video. Oh, look at that. 1 year ago. What's this video? MSTR. No, this is maybe something else. Oh yeah. The Strategy Bank of Bitcoin. This was 1 year ago. When was this posted? A year ago. Oh, nice face there, Jor. Bitcoin. What? I look about the same. Haven't aged much, have I, in a year? Strategy, MSTR, the Strategy Bank of Bitcoin. Just in case you didn't believe me. It's been a thesis around here for a while. Sats and Sunsets in the house, in the chat. Good morning, Sats and Sunsets. Good to see you, my friend. Ginger. Good morning, Jordan friends. Good morning, Ginger. Bitcoin Barber. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Captain. Good to see you, Captain. Hey, Captain, what was I doing the other day? I tried finding you on Signal, but you weren't on there. I couldn't find it. I didn't have your Okay, so I'm going to email you right now, Captain. I think this is your email address. Or did I email you back? I'm just going to say or actually, you know what? Send me a message on Signal. I thought I emailed you, but I haven't heard anything back, so maybe I didn't. Okay, Captain, I just sent you an email right now. Bitcoin Barber says, good morning, George. It does appear that Bitcoin-backed banks will become national banks. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. see play out here with all the the bad stuff going on, all the fights. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that most people just have no idea about. So that's the fun part. We will get by. We will survive. No, we won't survive. We're gonna fucking thrive, man. This is gonna be once we get through this. But again, we got to keep in mind here, and I think that we really, really have to, more than anything else, manage our expectations a little bit. We have to understand how far ahead we are of not only the average person, but like 99.9% of people. We got to wait for them to kind of catch up here. And so we got to be patient. We got to manage our expectations, but we are headed for something truly, truly amazing. And I'm just curious to see how it all kind of rolls out and plays out, because there's not too much doubt in my mind that this is all going to play out as expected, in a lot of ways. And a lot of people, call me a conspiracy theorist or different words along the way, many different words along the way. But it's happening, man. Everywhere you look, every dot that I connect, it's right in line with the thesis that we've had for years now on this channel that we've been talking about. And there's going to be speed bumps along the way. There's going to be some battles to fight, but we're in the right spot. We're in the perfect spot right now. Scotty says, "Is this the right place for surprises?" Surprises? Are you going to surprise us with something, or what are you talking about? I'm that guy at work that listens to duck sounds. Yeah, those ducks are pretty relaxing to listen to. Hey, Ralph's here. Good morning. Let the education begin. Good morning, Ralph. Maria, I forgot to say thank you for, I don't know if I forgot to, but thank you for the zaps yesterday. The Maria zap on Tuesday. Mondays and Tuesdays are kind of a shit show for me, just in terms of how fast the shows are, and we got guests on here. But like I said, things are going to be changing here a little bit, so it should be different going forward. And look at that. We got one from Maria again today. Maria and Mark again. Hey, and Conrad. Didn't see Conrad. Where's Conrad? Conrad's over in the Zap stream. We got the Matrix over in Zap stream who said that was a wild and awkward stream on Bitcoin Mastermind. Was it? Was it awkward? Why? What was awkward about it? That was a wild and awkward stream on BTC Mastermind. 812 Eclipse was really cool. There are bigger things than money, says the Matrix. Matrix says Bitcoin has been used before. QR codes are just Mayan and Aztec hieroglyphs. What do you mean the stream was awkward yesterday? Because Lou turned into British HODL between that show and the week before, or what? Yeah, me and Lou got into a couple, I wouldn't say arguments, but yeah, I didn't agree with what he was saying. But that's okay. And that's the other thing I was thinking about too, because like I said, we got some changes coming here. Some, I would call them significant upgrades to the channel and to what we're doing going forward. And, I really like Lou. I really like Lou. I like his attitude. Him and I obviously don't see eye to eye on everything. And the more I thought about it after, like I said, after the show, I kind of went outside for about an hour and just put my feet up or put my feet on the ground, got some sunshine. And I was thinking about it. And I was like, Lou really represents the average person. Obviously, he's way further ahead in many different aspects, but he really represents how the average person thinks. And, for me, I think completely different than that. Anybody who's, shows up here on the daily would recognize that. But yeah, when Lou turned into British HODL, it got kind of awkward. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I actually had a couple people reach out to me yesterday and said, who's this Lou guy? Why is he on this Bitcoin show? And but like I said, I think that now when I speak to Lou, it's more like I'm talking to the average person. And again, Lou's quite a bit ahead of the average person in terms of his Bitcoin knowledge. He doesn't spend every day in it. He does his own thing, and he does his own thing very well. And so he just hasn't put in the time to think about this stuff and to, use this stuff, experiment with it like I have. But it's very useful to have those conversations because it's almost like you're having a conversation with the average person who's a little bit ahead, obviously, but that's who we're trying to reach here. If we really want Bitcoin to go mainstream eventually, we need to talk to people like Lou. And so, yeah, I mean, he's an opinionated guy and he's very good at what he does. And so his pushbacks there, or not his pushback, but his ideas and the way he thinks is actually very useful for conversations if we want to grow Bitcoin adoption. Because again, that's how most people think. They think that Bitcoin's now a scary place. People think that, and not even people, like Bitcoiners think this. Bitcoiners think that self-custody is a scary thing now because of one instance affecting one company. And so even Lou, like he didn't have a cold card. He had a Trezor or Ledger or something like that. But he moved his Bitcoin because he didn't really know what was going on. He didn't know enough to know that what he had was more than sufficient. But that's just, again, because he hasn't put in the time to learn that because he's been doing other things. So it's like you can't be an expert in every scenario. And so you have to have these conversations with people like Lou. And that's the only way that we're going to grow this thing because not everybody thinks like us. That's just the reality of things. Lou was talking down to Bitcoiners. I didn't like that. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he was talking down to Bitcoiners. He's just kind of watching this whole thing play out, I think, from my perspective. And yeah, I mean, from the outside looking in, it would look just like chaos right now, that we just have no idea what we're doing. It's just a scramble. But it's like when you understand Bitcoin at a certain level, you understand what happened last week and you understand how to prevent that from happening to you. But if you're just kind of looking at this as, a big picture here, then it would scare you. If you don't know how RNG works, random number generators, if you don't know the reliance on the devices and the difference between a signed device and a seed generator and a wallet, then you probably shouldn't be in self-custody anyways. And that's kind of what I said is like, hopefully everybody finds their way to self-custody. And that's really what I feel like I want to talk about every day. And that's what I'm going to be talking about every day because I think that it is the most important thing in Bitcoin. Everything else is going to play out. Right? With or without us, everything else is going to play out. What we can do is we can make sure we maximize our amount of Satoshis that we have, and we maximize the security around protecting the private keys associated with those sats. That's what we can do. And that's what I want to do. And I think the one thing that we learned from the situation last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was now, is that this has to be top of mind. This isn't something that you just do once and you watch a couple of videos about and you do it once or twice and then you put it away for 5 years. And hopefully when you open it up again, it's going to be there and you remember what you're doing. This is a constant daily practice that we need to be talking about, that we need to be thinking about, that we need to be learning more about every single day. Because again, we are the custodians of these Satoshis. And I don't think anybody, including myself, understands how valuable these Satoshis really are. We have an idea, we have our predictions, but I don't think any of us truly understand and comprehend how valuable these Satoshis really are and are going to be in the future. And so our goal here, the only thing that we can do about this whole situation is protect our own and practice and think about it as a daily practice, not a one-time thing. Matrix said, great stream though otherwise. He put it into a Robinhood account that is held together with 2FA security. Yeah, I mean, I agree. But at the same time, for somebody like Lou, who doesn't understand the private keys and where to keep them and how to set up a multi-sig and what to back up, what a passphrase is, all these things, for somebody like Lou, yeah, his amount of Bitcoin shouldn't be kept behind a 12-word single signature wallet, regardless if it was Ledger, Trezor, Cold Card, whatever. There's just way too much at risk there. And I'm not saying that Robinhood is, the end all be all and is better. And I even said that to Lou yesterday. I said that I would argue that if you actually know what you're doing with your self-custody, you can have a much better sense of security than a Robinhood could. I really believe that. Anybody can do that. It just takes work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a very deep understanding of what you have and what you're protecting and how to do that. So, I mean, yeah, he maybe said it the wrong way and maybe rubbed some people the wrong way, but he's right. He's right in the sense of somebody like Lou, who has that amount of Bitcoin, probably shouldn't be taking self-custody of it right now without putting in the work or having somebody help them with it. You know, I would say that probably somebody like Lou, I don't know that Robinhood would be my recommendation. I think it'd be more like an Unchained, where it's in like a 2 of 3 multi-sig where he actually has full control of it, unilateral control of that Bitcoin, but he has somebody else looking after one of his keys in case he happens to lose one of his keys or mess something up. So, you know, as the conversation goes on, as time progresses here, you know, I'll probably have that conversation with him. But anyways, good morning, Maria. Mike is here. Good morning, Micah. Zuzan. Maria, Micah, Zuzan. Look at that. Back to back to back. Good morning. Scotty boy, I'm that guy at work that, oh, never mind. Scotty, what's your surprise? What's your surprise here, man? Tell us. Let us know. Okay, let's get through these here. Cedar, good morning, Cedar. Cedar, how's the day going? How's the weather there in Ontario? You got a line in the water? Chuck says, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chuck. Good to see you, my friend. Jake, Mark, 6'5" Sats, Bob, Stewie, the boys. BTC Plebinator sold all his Bitcoin for silver. I'm too stupid for self-custody. Matt Hill, oh, that's a random comment from user NQ4 TK3MS7J. Pearl says, didn't know about Lionsgate Portal. I just thought 8.8 was so amazing this year because it was part of the days between. Guess there's a lot of layers. Yeah, there's like 10 different things happening in the universe today. Matt FRL over on Zapstream. Good morning, Matt. Says, I survived the bear market blips and bleeps of 2026. Good man. Good man. Hey, Paulie's here. Head voice. Morning soldiers. Ducks for Arnie from Daisy incoming. Nice. Good man. Let's check this out. Let's see what Daisy sent in today. Daisy, oh, there's some ducks right there. A row of ducks. Ducks from Daisy. Thank you, Paulie. Appreciate that, man. Thanks for the support and thanks for being here today. Sats and Sunset's going to try to catch a solar eclipse this afternoon. Only 15% coverage where I'm at, but still fun to watch. This afternoon? I figured it would be at night, but I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. Pearl says, yeah, man, a black lab saved my life 15 years ago. Those days walking in untouched forest with her were the best days. Man, I feel like dogs are, I really believe that dogs are angels. I really deeply believe that. And so what am I going to do? Hopefully in 10 years from now, actually not hopefully, I'm going to make this happen. 10 years from now, I'm going to have probably 3 or 4 dogs. Arnie's going to be the dad of the dogs, keep everybody in line. And hopefully 3 or 4 kids, maybe a couple boys, at least 1 girl. And we're going to have a funny farm out here of many more animals, hopefully some goats, some chickens, probably a donkey. And I just think it would be hilarious to watch Arnie and other dogs interact with goats. I just think that that's the funniest shit, man. Whenever I see somebody with dogs and goats and how they're getting along and, you know, coexisting, I think it's just hilarious. Anyone in Spain? I heard that. I actually heard that Spain will have a good view today, and somewhere else too is going to have a good view. I forget where it was though. Anyways, that is today. Bitcoin Nurse. Haven't seen TBN in a while. Good morning, Bitcoin Nurse. Good to see you. Great to see you. Scammers are working overtime. Coin Cards is a good company too. Coin Cards. Never heard of it. Satsiva. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Satsiva because I'm sure most people, if you've been paying attention at all, you know, been in a battle lately. It's been a battle. Sticking up for what I believe to be the right thing to do and the truth amongst many, many lies being told right now in Bitcoin. But, you know, you look at any one of my videos right now and there's just 3, 4, 5 people in there just saying mean things that, you know, I can take it. But I want to say thank you to Satsiva because I saw a couple comments in there where he was not really defending me, but just calling people out on bullshit. And so I appreciate that. I see it and I notice it and I appreciate it. Show 83, show 583, I guess we should say. Starlink in the woods is becoming ever more appealing. Starlink, you mean? Starlink in the woods? Lapad says money on the longest chain, like I said it would. Good man. Good man. Starlink there. There we go. Uncle Jimmy. What's up, Uncle Jimmy? That's what I was trying to do. Okay, so let's actually go to this because fuck, this is a good song. Do I have this in my playlist? It reminds me of Traveling Soldiers by the Dixie Chicks. Not the Chicks. The Dixie Chicks. Man, I've been really enjoying those two NBA players that are signing up or that are signing up to be draft eligible for the WNBA. That's man, that's good to watch. I love those fucking demons just squirming. I saw a couple of interviews of the WNBA players saying, you know, of course I would be welcoming to a trans player coming into the league. Of course I would. It's the right thing to do. We got to be supportive and loving to everybody. So yeah, I wouldn't have any issues with if trans players wanted to join the NBA. Well, let's see. Let's see if you put up a fight when those two boys hop on the court and join in the fun. Let's see what happens. Let's see if you're true to your word or if you're just virtue signaling fucking bullshit like most people do. Okay, what the hell was I talking about there? Okay. Oh yeah. The Matrix said, this is the toughest bear market I've been through due to the psychological warfare. Matrix said, dog is an anagram for God. There are no coincidences. We live in a fallen world and gods are here to protect us. I agree to that. I agree strongly with that. Okay, so what can I do here? Google. So I was trying to find this quote here because what? Oh, okay, here we go. Fuck, you got to go right to the Reddit post. It's not available on Google. I tried like 4 different times this morning to get this quote from Hal Finney about Bitcoin-backed banks, and it just wouldn't do it. It like started spitting it out, and then it just kept saying, "Unfortunately, I can't help you with this." No idea why. I don't know. I don't know if it was just an issue with Gemini at the time, but anyways, here it is. So this is what. Maybe we'll start with what happened here. Maybe we'll start with what happened because this is pretty big news, man, and this is again kind of what we expected to happen, but you know, you never know when. You never know if you're going to be right or wrong. But anyways, this is the article here. So let's bring this up. This is from the Office of the Comptroller of Currency. This was the release that came out yesterday. So the OCC won't let me be me on MTV. No. Try to shut me down on MTV, but it feels so different without me. OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, commends the FDIC reform, advances priority to reinvigorate de novo chartering. So this was the article, or this is the press release, I should say. that came out from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. So keep in mind that most people don't know this, but when Trump was the president in his first term, he actually made Brian Brooks the office or the Comptroller of the Currency. And Brian Brooks is a very well-known Bitcoiner. So that was in Trump's first term before he even announced that he was a Bitcoiner himself. So again, this stuff's been kind of going on for a lot of years. Saylor, Trumps have known Saylor for over 20 years. That's what Eric said in one of his speeches. So I really believe that there's, if you think that this whole thing happening is just kind of, a shot in the dark or throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, I think you're sorely, sorely mistaken. But there's some information around this. So basically what they're doing now is I think it said in the last couple of years, there was like 4 applications for new banks. Historically, they've been pretty slow. They've been very hesitant, and there's been a lot of friction for anybody who wants to, start a bank, a national bank. So this is what they came out with yesterday, and I'm just going to get the summary of it here because I don't want to really read through this. It's kind of dull language, but that was the article that came out. So this is the key highlights of the article here. And it's funny because I've been seeing a couple people saying, oh, this guy has to use AI. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like most fucking videos you watch on YouTube, people not only are using AI, but they pretty much used AI to generate their whole show or their whole video. And they have like a little teleprompter that AI creates for them that they literally just read. So for anybody giving me shit for using AI for this stuff, I mean, you're fucking stupid not to. So anyways, here's the key highlights of this article from yesterday. Streamlining bank charters. After more than a decade of severe decline in de novo bank creation so it says from 2011 to 2014, the OCC received an average of fewer than 4 applications per year. Regulators are simplifying and clarifying the application process for federal bank charters and deposit insurance. So they're going to have faster approval timelines as well. In the past 18 months leading up to this release, the OCC received 40 de novo applications and has made decisions on complete applications in as few as 120 days, leading to the first full-service national bank opening its doors in 5 years. 5 years. You wonder why these people have so much fucking control. Because they don't let anybody, it's not a free market. It's all fake. It's all bullshit. It's all controlled. So this is hopefully going to change that a little bit. Pro-innovation stance. The Comptroller of the Currency, Jonathan Gould, signaled a major regulatory shift, stating that federal regulators are moving away from past resistance towards new charter applicants and declaring that America and the OCC are once again open for business. America and the OCC are once again open for business. So how it relates to Bitcoin. He made a clear highlight for digital assets. Entities that engage in legally permissible activities, including those involving digital assets and other novel technologies, should have a path to becoming a bank. For Bitcoin and crypto companies such as custodians, exchanges, and crypto native trust companies, obtaining a national bank charter allows them to offer banking services, custody, and settlement under a single unified federal regulatory framework rather than navigating a complex state-by-state licensing regimen. So if you've been paying attention at all for these last couple years, you know that Strike obviously it started in the US, but it was only like a couple months ago where they actually finished all 50 states. And so that's kind of what it's saying here is like every single state in the US right now has much different regulations and framework. And so you kind of have to go one at a time versus like a very simple federal guideline or policy framework. So it says historically, digital asset firms have faced significant hurdles in obtaining federal charters and FDIC insurance. This news releases this news release signals a formal policy shift towards integrating compliant digital asset firms into the formal U.S. banking infrastructure. So the question here from Uncle Jimmy is, isn't a Bitcoin-backed bank completely losing the plot? What am I not seeing here? So if we look back to what Hal Finney said about this, this is what Hal Finney said about this. This was more than 10 years ago. I think he said it in 2010. But this was Hal Finney. So many believe that Hal Finney was maybe Satoshi or played a big part, obviously, in the rollout of Bitcoin, the early days of Bitcoin. But this was his idea. So it says, actually, there's a very good reason for Bitcoin-backed banks to exist, issuing their own digital cash currency, redeemable for Bitcoin. So that's the key here. And we're going to talk about a couple more things here, but that's the whole key to this, is that they're redeemable for Bitcoin. And so you think back even how much different the world was and how much better society was overall when we were redeemable for gold. So that's really what fiat is. Fiat was actually an innovation that allowed people to transact much easier without having to haul around a bunch of gold. Right? And you might say, well, you don't have to haul around Bitcoin, but here's the difference is most people don't really want to go through it. Like we started the show talking about Lou today. He doesn't care to take self-custody of his Bitcoin. And Lou's, again, way ahead of the curve of most people in terms of what they want to take on, their personal responsibility, their level of sovereignty. So how the system works right now is like it's just a complete shit show. Your fiat cash is backed by a promise, is backed by debt. It's a Federal Reserve note. There's nothing backing it. And so they have the ability to create infinite units of this. And we see what impact that has on our society, our day-to-day life, and how basically for the last 50 years since we went off the gold standard, since fiat was no longer redeemable for gold, how much everything has deteriorated. Everything. Health, relationships, our mental health, physical health, crime, divorce rates, everything has just blown up, gone to shit ever since we stopped being redeemable for gold. And the point of this right here is Bitcoin itself cannot scale. Bitcoin itself cannot scale to have every single financial transaction in the world be broadcast to everyone and included in the blockchain. And so when we think about this, I actually got AI here to do a little bit of a calculation. Where was this? Right here. So this is what it is here. It says, to demonstrate Hal's point, we compare the physical capacity of Bitcoin's 10-minute block against global payment transaction volumes. So keep in mind here, and I think everybody knows this, but I don't think people really understand the magnitude of this. Bitcoin is global. This isn't an American thing or a Canadian thing or a Western thing. Bitcoin is global. Global demand, global liquidity, global reach. So the Bitcoin base layer capacity based on one block every 10 minutes on average is about 2,500 to 3,500 transactions, average of 3,000 transactions per block. So the current block weight limit is 4 megabytes. Typically yields 1.5 megabytes to 2.5 megabytes of actual transaction data, which equates to about 5 to 7 transactions per second. And if we compare that to the global payments, there's about 9.85 billion transactions per day, which equals about 68.4 million transactions per 10 minutes, which is about 114,000 transactions per second. So that's quite a spread there. 114,000 transactions, that's what we're used to. That's what we have right now, the infrastructure for. The Bitcoin mainnet, layer 1, only has the throughput of 5 to 7 transactions per second. So the math gap here is 3,000 transactions per 10 minutes versus 68.4 million transactions per 10 minutes. So the deficit here is 22,000 times. The current system that we have is 22,000 times, not percent, times bigger. To fit every global transaction on Bitcoin's base layer today, the network would need to process 22,000 times more data than it currently does. So then, of course, you would get into the block size. And that's why Bitcoin Cash wanted to increase the block size, because they wanted to have this all happen on Bitcoin. But the problem with that, sounds good in theory. You know, obviously you want to get rid of the banks. You want to do this all peer-to-peer. But the problem with that is that then it no longer is decentralized. Why? Because of the storage capacities. So the blockchain would expand by 2.3 terabytes per day, or roughly 818 terabytes per year, if we were recording all these transactions on the base layer. So that's why. And of course, at that, the increasing of 800 terabytes per year, not only are like hardcore people, not obviously the average person would never run a node at that point, but even hardcore Bitcoiners wouldn't be able or afford to run a node. And so you could run a pruned version of it. And that's kind of like the conversation that we've been having with the BIP 110 stuff. You can run a pruned version, a pruned node. But the problem with that is before you even run that node, a pruned node, you have to download the entire blockchain first. And so you can imagine in 10 years from now, if we were to scale on Bitcoin layer 1, 10 years times 800 terabytes per year, it's a pretty big number. And you'd have to have the storage capacity to store all of that transaction, to download that first. Then you could run a pruned node and you wouldn't have to keep up with that, but you would still have to have the initial requirement of, what would that be? A big number. It would be a different kind of tera. What comes after tera? Peta? What comes after tera? Or yeah, tera. Let's check this out. So if we go to, this is how I know my petas and teras. Okay, so we started with mega hash in Bitcoin. Mega hash. Then we went to gigahash, and then terahash, and then petahash. I was right. Terabytes to petabytes. Not to be confused with petabytes. Petabytes. So that would be 800 times 10, be 8,000. So that'd be like 8 petabytes worth of data. In other words, wouldn't work. So if we go back to that post from Hal said Bitcoin itself cannot scale to have every single financial transaction be broadcast to everyone and included in the blockchain. There needs to be a secondary level of payment systems, which is lighter weight and more efficient. Likewise, the time needed for Bitcoin transactions to finalize will be practical for medium to large value purchases. Yeah, I mean, imagine walking into a store and paying with Bitcoin on the mainnet, and you have to wait 10 minutes at least, bare minimum, for your transaction to be confirmed, and so you can leave the store. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense. Bitcoin-backed banks will solve these problems. They can work like banks did before nationalization of currency. Different banks can have different policies, some more aggressive, some more conservative. Some would be fractional reserve, while others may be 100% Bitcoin-backed. Interest rates may vary. Cash from some banks may trade at a discount to that from others. So think about that. Cash from some banks may trade at a discount to that of others. What does that mean? That means that in this world where banks are backing their reserves in Bitcoin, so let's say that Bank One has, and I'm going to keep this as simple as possible to try to drive home the point here. Bank One has 1,000 Bitcoin on the balance sheet, 1,000, that they, every month, they verify a transaction for all of its users, all of its shareholders, all of its stakeholders, to show that they have 1,000 Bitcoin. Proof of reserves, just like River does today. I think they do a quarterly. No, they do a monthly audit of their Bitcoin balance. So Bank One has 1,000 Bitcoin. They show full proof of reserves, and they have 1,000 Bitcoin worth of liabilities, which means that people have taken their Bitcoin, deposited into the bank. And so that's a lot. That's an asset, obviously, that's for their reserve, but it's also a liability because they have to pay that out if the consumer, the individual, comes and says, hey, I want my Bitcoin. So they have 1,000 Bitcoin on reserve, and they have 1,000 Bitcoin as a liability. Compare that to like today, where banks would have the equivalent of 1,000 Bitcoin on reserve, but then they owe, their liabilities would be 100x that. That's the fractional reserve, where they take a small amount in as an asset, or a deposit, I should say, which is a liability. I know it's kind of confusing to think through this, but then they loan it all out, which I guess then becomes an asset to them. And it's all kind of fucking stupid the way it works, but that's fiat. That's the problem that we have. So Bank One has 1,000 Bitcoin deposited on reserve, and they have 1,000 Bitcoin liability, even. That'd be 100% Bitcoin backed. Bank number two has 1,000 Bitcoin on reserve. They have 1,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet that people have deposited with the bank or that they hold themselves. But then they have 3,000 Bitcoin in liabilities that they owe. 3,000. So then they would have their ratio there would be 33% Bitcoin backed, I believe, something like that. And they also don't show proof of reserve. So the point of what I'm trying to make here is this: cash from some banks may trade at a discount to that from others. So in that scenario, which bank would probably have a stronger currency, or an eCash, or a stablecoin, whatever you want to call it? Bank One, because they're 100% Bitcoin backed, plus they show proof of reserves. So people would value their stablecoin more than Bank Two. So Bank Two would trade at a discount compared to Bank One because of their loan requirements, because of their ratio from assets to liabilities, and because of their ability to show proof of reserves. One bank would be more desirable, would have more backing than the other one. So the other one would trade at a discount. Does that make sense? So it says George Selgin has worked out of the theory of competitive free banking in detail, and he argues that such a system would be stable, inflation resistant, and self-regulating. So what that means, self-regulating part of this, is that let's say that Bank Two goes really off the deep end. They have these big claims. They're not showing any proof of reserves. They're lending more out than they're taking in. So that would be self-regulating, in the sense that people would lose faith in their bank's ability that they have the Bitcoin that they claim to. So that's how the self-regulating works, is that because Bitcoin's global, because it's all very transparent, people can work through this themselves. Consumers and individuals can work through this themselves. And then you might have somebody like me and people watching the show today who just don't even use the banks anymore. We take self-custody of our own Bitcoin. We don't need a bank to hold it for us. We don't want a third party involved here. So this wouldn't be applicable to everybody. And the cool thing is, like, you could still peer-to-peer interact with people, or I could hold stablecoin of Bank One if I wanted to. If that's what my local grocer accepted, for example, then I could swap it. I could do an atomic swap between Bitcoin and that currency if that's what they wanted to be paid in, if they weren't set up to accept Bitcoin on Lightning or whatever. But I would still have the ability, if I wanted to, if I built my own little network and people that I buy and sell with, we could still use Bitcoin. Nobody would stop that. This would just be for Bitcoin to seep its way into the mainstream. And that's what's going to happen here. That's what is happening. So then he says, I believe this will be the ultimate fate of Bitcoin, to be the high-powered money that serves as the reserve currency for banks that issue their own digital cash. Serves as a reserve currency for banks that issue their own digital cash. And so people might say, well, okay, how are we supposed to trust the banks? Well, with Bitcoin, you don't need to trust, right? If one bank is showing proof of reserves in a way that you trust yourself, that you can verify yourself, then you're much more likely to do business with that bank, with their digital cash, with their stable coin, versus somebody who's a little bit more sketchy. They're taking more risks. How did he put that up here? Some banks will have different policies, some more aggressive, some more conservative. So probably the more aggressive banks here will give you a higher interest rate, just like they do today. The more aggressive banks who have a less, a ratio, a lower ratio, that'd be considered a more aggressive bank, but they'll pay out higher interest. So if you deposit your Bitcoin into bank 2, they're more aggressive, but they're paying you 10% versus 5%. But that's the risk that you need to decide for yourself. And so eventually, if they start playing too many games and get too aggressive, maybe they get wiped out, and then their digital cash goes to zero. Most Bitcoin transactions will occur between banks to net settle transfers. So that's really what a lot of people are missing here, I think. And that's maybe a conversation for another day. But like, people have this weird fantasy that like everybody's going to be sending Bitcoin. You're going to be opening up your Trezor, your cold card, or whatever you're using, and you're just going to be paying people on the mainnet. No, there's not going to be nearly enough space on the mainnet, assuming that all these banks, all these organizations are using Bitcoin as the base currency, the base layer, or the, what do you call it here? The reserve currency. So really that's what's going to happen. Like, big picture, currently we use the US dollar as the reserve currency of the world, which is stupid, very stupid. But somehow we let it happen. We didn't. Somebody did 100 years ago. But Bitcoin is going to be the new reserve currency. It's going to be the new unit of measurement. So we're not going to be measuring things like all around the world. Everybody kind of pegs to the US dollar. That's done. It might not be done today. People still might be doing it, but in the future, it's going to be Bitcoin being the reserve currency because it just makes the most sense. It just makes the most sense. And you see steps being taken this direction already. So it's not my opinion here, or Hal's for that matter. So most Bitcoin transactions will occur between banks. And so when that happens, you also come to the conclusion that most blocks are going to be jammed packed of these transfers and settlements between banks and larger entities. And it's going to be very difficult to get your transaction onto the mainnet, right? So what does this tie into here? It's very difficult for me to come out and say, hey, proof of work and transaction fees are the only way to solve the spam problem. People are like, well, what the fuck are you talking about, Joey? You're an idiot. We need a new BIP. We need a new line of code so that it's harder for spammers to spam the chain. So think about this world where the only people that are basically transacting on the Bitcoin mainnet are bank-to-bank settlements, country-to-country settlements, oil for something else settlements. You know how expensive it's going to be to get a transaction on the mainnet? Again, people just see what's right in front of them. They look at the mempool and they're like, oh, easy. I could pay 1 sat per VByte to get onto the mainnet. And that might also be the case. That's my whole theory, is that I don't think the sats per VByte will increase that much over time. But the value of those Satoshis are going to exponentially increase over the next 10, 20 years. So for people like us who are here today, who have an abundance of Satoshis, they actually won't be that expensive for us. But for the average person who only has 20,000 sats to their name and they make 1,000 sats per year, they're not going to be paying 500 sats per VByte or per transaction. So what does that mean in terms of spam? That means that there's not going to be any sort of ability for people to waste their fucking Satoshis on spamming the time chain. That's how proof of work, transaction fees over a long time frame solves spam, not some new BIP. You have to be able to look past the next year or two in order to see how this whole thing's going to play out, because that also applies to the shit that we're talking about today. It's just that most people don't have the ability to see past next week. So that's why they're up in arms about this BIP 110 bullshit, because they think that this is the only way to solve spam is by putting in a new line of code or taking out a line of code. When in reality, how this is going to play out is not going to make any sort of economic sense for somebody to put bullshit on the time chain. It's just not. So here we go. Bitcoin transactions by private individuals will be as rare as, well, Bitcoin-based purchases today. So it took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, actually. But anyways. One more part of this. One more part of this that I want to share. So Hal Finney's landmark post on Bitcoin Talk Forum dated in 2010 outlined his vision for Bitcoin-backed banks and multi-layered monetary system. So we knew that Bitcoin base layer could not scale to every individual transaction worldwide, global asset. Broadcasting every global payment to every node on the network would create massive performance bottlenecks. Block confirmation times would be so slow for routine commerce. And he concluded that a secondary payment system was necessary to handle daily transaction velocity. So to bridge this gap, he proposed that institutions would operate as Bitcoin-backed banks. These banks would hold actual Bitcoin as their underlying reserve asset and issue their own digital cash currencies that customers could redeem for raw Bitcoin. So think about that. Think about, like, let's actually play through this. The average person, again, not me, not you, but the average person in a decade from now, their banks, kind of without them knowing, have started to stack Bitcoin. So they have Bitcoin on their balance sheet now. They become a Bitcoin bank. That's what they're backing their reserves on, because everything else is fucking worth nothing. That's what we see play out here. Everything else is worth nothing. Okay. So the bank, they issue their own version of digital cash. The Bank One has a Bank One token. So then you're like, okay, well, for the average person, they don't want to look after their cold card. They don't want to worry about managing their private keys. They don't give a shit. They just want to be safe. So they buy some Bitcoin, they send it to their bank, and their bank issues them Bank One token. So that's what they have now. That's what they have to look after. And there will probably be some sort of insurance over that. So let's say that they're carrying around $2,000 worth of Bank One token on their phone, and somebody robs them or somebody rips them off. Well, the bank could just say they'll probably have some sort of a fund, like an insurance fund, for when that happens. So they'll get immediately reimbursed because they were stolen from. It'll be insured, just like the fiat is now. So then they get their money back. And then all of a sudden they go to a store, and the store is like, okay, well, we accept this token, whatever that is. And then they can immediately swap it, because again, it's on a secondary layer. So you can immediately swap Bank One token for whatever the store wants that you're trying to pay for in. So to the average person, it just kind of still seems like we're using dollars like they're used to. But in the background, the banks are building their own Bitcoin reserves, and that's what's setting apart banks from Bank One to Bank Two, is how much Bitcoin they have. So again, from the consumer lens, they're not going to have to worry about managing their keys. Their interaction is very similar, and they might not even have to click fucking convert. They might just tap a QR code or tap their phone on a little payment reader, and it does that behind the scenes for them. So it might just be like US dollars or some sort of dollar. They just tap the phone behind the scenes, that automatically swaps to whatever the business owner wants to receive. Zero friction there. Actually, that already happens. We can already do that today in 2026, where you could use a Square terminal. You can pay in Bitcoin, but the business owner receives US dollars. Or the flip side, you pay in US dollars, but the business owner receives Bitcoin. So that this is already happening. And it's going to become easier and easier, so that the average person isn't even going to understand what's happening there. But because the infrastructure is built on a solid foundation, which is Bitcoin, doesn't matter. There's no more bank bailouts. If you don't have the Bitcoin that you claim to have, you're fucking done. That's all there is to it. Not because somebody said that that's the case, because people just stop depositing their Bitcoin in your bank and all of a sudden you become irrelevant. Free market. Free banking. A return to free banking. Okay, so to bridge this gap, he proposed that institutions could operate as Bitcoin-backed banks. These banks would hold actual Bitcoin as their underlying reserve asset and issue their own digital cash currencies that customers could redeem for raw Bitcoin. So you could either go to the store and pay with your dollars or whatever it is we're using at that time, or you could go to the bank and say, "Here's my Bank One tokens. Give me some Bitcoin." Just like the old days where you could walk into the bank with your certificate, which was called something other than a Federal Reserve note, but you could actually redeem it for an ounce of gold. We're going back to that same system. Whether you believe that or not, I don't give a shit. We're going back to that system. And there's really nothing that can stop it at this point. Even if somebody doesn't want to do it, too bad. They're going to fucking fail. That's the whole point. If a bank's very resistant of this and they're like, Bitcoin, who cares? That's a fad. Well, they die. Simple as that. So that's free banking. Drawing on historical models of competitive free banking prior to the creation of central banks, Finney envisioned a market where private banks completely competed openly. So they have diverse reserve policies. Institutions could choose their own risk profile, some operating on 100% Bitcoin reserves, while others experimented with fractional reserves. So again, a bank has 100% Bitcoin reserves. Bank 2 has fractional reserve. Which one do you think is going to be more stable, more valuable, trading at more of a premium? And also market-driven reputation. So banks would offer varying interest rates. So again, if there was a fractional reserve bank and maybe they only had 20% of their reserves in Bitcoin, that means they could lend more out, make more coming back, and they could pay more out to their members. So they could offer a higher interest rate, but there's more risk there because they don't have 100% Bitcoin backed. And, most people will probably go for that, right? Like they're like, I don't care. This bank's probably, they're used to banks just being around. So they're like, well, this bank number 2 here, even though they don't have as much reserves, they're paying me 10% versus this other bank, which is paying me 5%. So they'll probably go that way. But people who understand the dynamics here, they'll probably prefer, even though they're making less interest, they'd rather have 100% Bitcoin-backed reserves. No funny games. No bullshit. So banks would offer varying rates, and the digital notes issued by less reliable banks might trade at a discount compared to those from fully backed conservative institutions. So again, relying on economic theory of free banking, he suggested that market competition and redemption demands would naturally keep banks honest, stable, inflation resistant without state mandates. Boom. Boom, 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 boom. So Bitcoin is high-powered money. In Finney's view, Bitcoin's primary role at full maturity would be serving as a high-powered money, a supreme reserve currency used primarily for large settlements between financial entities, while the public predominantly transacted on secondary layers or institutional claims. There you go. And I see I missed a million comments here. That was a mouthful. Okay, let's check on Zapstream. Cypher Sat, Zap 99 Sat said, "Morning, everyone. When is Visionaries Bank opening for business?" It sounds crazy. I don't think you're joking either, but that's the shit that's going to happen in the future. It's not going to be TD Bank. I mean, it could be if they get their shit together, but I doubt it. They're too fat. They're too big. Too slow. But thank you, Cypher. But there will be banks. There'll probably be people who are watching the show today that have a bank because they have 1 or 2 Bitcoin. I said 1,000 Bitcoin, but there's not going to be many banks that actually have 1,000 Bitcoin in the future. And so let's say the Bank of Jor started, and maybe I just have less customers, but I have I raise some capital, get some shareholders. Maybe I get 5 Bitcoin. I got a bank. Maybe I just have less customers. Whoa, what happened here? Laughpad, my man, with the biggest zap of the day so far. Big one. A biggie. He said, Sats fresh off the longest chain with a winky face. Thank you, Laughpad. I appreciate that, buddy. Very much. Very much. Cedar Sats also sent in 2121 from Cedar Sats. Thank you, Cedar. Sats and Sunset zapped 83 Sats for show 83. Conrad zapped 963. And we also got an 18 and a 45 from our guy, Sin Deezy. So yeah, where are we here? Oh, Cypher, I missed yours. That was a while ago. Sorry, buddy. Conrad said, hey, Matrix, what about cats? Matrix says, no comment. Why? Because of their serpent eyes? Matrix says they're part reptilian. Just kidding. Doesn't make them evil. I think they're the same as dogs. Conrad says, I love my cats. Speaking of dogs. There he is, folks. The CEO, the CTO, and the COO of 88 Sats. Arnie boy, checking in, making sure we're on track here. Matrix says, Bankrupt of America closed my account because I was inactive for 6 months. Wow. Kevin. Morning, Kev. Kevin said, I don't want fractional reserves to be allowed in the future. That's the basis of wealth theft. Same thing happened under the gold standard. It got worse and worse after gold was dropped. Free market banking might work okay if everyone had an expert knowledge of banking. As it is, I think fractional reserves need to be forbidden to protect Joe Sixpack, Sally Soccer Mom, and Grandma. That said, I don't disagree with Hal. I just think it would be 100%. It should be 100% reserves, no exceptions. Yeah. And I would agree with that, except the beauty of free market is that there's going to be people who don't give a shit about that. Right. And so those banks that have some sort of fractional reserve where they don't have 100% Bitcoin backed, they'll be more risky. They'll probably pay out a higher interest rate because of they're taking on more risk, right? Because when you have a ratio that's less than 100%, that means that you're lending out some of your reserves, right? Like that's the important part to understand here. So if a bank had 100% reserves, that means that every person who deposited their Bitcoin into that bank, they just hold on to that Bitcoin. They don't lend it out. Right? So with or would they? I guess they would still lend it out, but when they lent it out, they would lend it to, let's say they lent me some money. Let's say I need to buy a new car and they lent me, they gave me a $20,000 loan. So they would give me the money, but that would also be an asset to them because I have to pay it back plus interest. So that's how banks will obviously, continue to operate. They loan it out. And then they have an asset on their balance sheet saying that I'm going to pay back that 2,000%. So, I mean, there's a couple different things with that. Number one, they would have to be somewhat strict in terms of like their policy, right? And that would be another thing where like me as a Bitcoiner in the future, they're not going to give a shit what my credit score is. They're going to give a shit how much collateral I can put up in Bitcoin. And so somebody who has Bitcoin as their collateral versus somebody who has a promise saying that I will pay you back with this piece of paper here saying that I will, which one's more, which one's more stable? Which one's more valuable, I guess, as an asset on the balance sheet? Somebody who actually posted Bitcoin as collateral or somebody who just signed their name on a piece of paper? But then it's the fractional reserves who are actually lending out more than they have the ability to collect. Or they create tokens when they don't have deposits. That's really what happens in the banking system today. That's what fractional reserve is. A bank gets a deposit for $100 and they lend out $1,000 worth of money. That's creation. That's fiat creation, currency creation. So that's what the fractional reserve is there. So 100% Bitcoin backed would be that they're not creating new tokens based on a deposit. If I deposit $100, that's what they have the ability to lend out, $100, not $1,000. But again, not everybody's going to care. They're going to see a 10% interest rate, even though the bank is more risky. They have less Bitcoin as a reserve, but they're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to earn 10% because, I don't understand. Like Kevin said there, I don't understand banking. Like Joe Sixpack, Sally's soccer mom, grandma, they don't understand it. So they're just like, oh, 10%. Of course. Why would I go anywhere else? But there's more risk there. But that's free market. That's free banking, free market banking. Let's Full 5 zapped 121. Thank you, Let's Full 5. Let's Full 5 has been showing up here. Good to see you. I don't even know if I can try to get through these comments here. But I do want to give a shout out here to Praetorian. I saw this stuck out like a sore thumb. Praetorian membership. Robert Stalsrow gifted a membership by Praetorian. Wow, we got a good crew in here today. We got 40 people on Rumble, 40 people on YouTube, and over 10 people on Zapstream today. So thank you, Praetorian. I appreciate that very much. The subscription over on Rumble. A new redneck was born. That redneck's name is Robert. Good morning to the boys here. Okay, let's keep going. What do I got for time? Captain said, yeah, okay, I thought I did. Downloaded Signal on Android, and I'm not sure if it's the correct app. Okay, so Captain, I don't know if you're still here or not, but just go to Signal, I think it's signal.org. Should double check that. I should have double checked that before I put it in the chat. Signal.org, that's what it is. Signal.org. Eatable Zebras here. Good morning. Listening in the background. Good morning, Stripes. Sandeep, good to drain the swamp every once in a while. Kev Keith, good morning. Hey, Jason's here. Good morning, crew. Checking in from Southwest Manitoba. My man, my fellow Manitoban. Good morning, Jason. Good to see you, buddy. British gives scammy vibes. Yeah, he's something. Vic, good morning. Sandeep, Blue is no Bitcoin mastermind. Well, the thing about the BTC mastermind is it's actually not Bitcoin mastermind, even though we talk about Bitcoin, but it actually stands for Be the Change. Be the Change mastermind, BTC. But he's needed. We need Lou in there. Lou's going to be a big part of what we're building here. Big part. Weather's been great. Most of the summer, Jordan, no complaints. Good man. Got basic NWC on my site, though, is more from Jerry's stream. What was Jerry's stream? Surprise. I must have missed that one. Solar eclipse is the moon covering the sun. Oh, yeah, right. Duh. Drew says, good morning, everyone. Here for listening. Very interesting. What was that about? They will bypass the state. Oh, yeah. The banks. Yeah. Very interesting. New York is the worst for regulations. Yeah, I think New York, Illinois, California, all the fucking Democrat idiot states. Uncle Jimmy, I mean, we haven't seen this promise broken before. The issue isn't the underlying asset being backed. It's the promise to pay back can be broken. Well, hopefully after my explanation there, that makes more sense to you. Who says they can't do the same with Bitcoin? Well, the difference between Bitcoin and gold is that when you deposit your gold into the banks and they put it in the vault, you're basically still having to trust them. You're having to trust them that the gold is there and that the gold is legitimate. Bitcoin, you don't need to do that. And that's what I was talking about there. You can actually show proof of reserves. You can verify that you have the keys to that so that your members can see that. And, they don't have to trust you on it. It took the advantage of concepts of fiat. Exactly. And Bitcoin is verifiably. That's the thing, verifiably. Jackie, the latest to be Jackie Tucker, the latest to be brainwashed. Bitcoin is now run by the mining pools. They call the shots. PSYOP. The people who are in the PSYOP, I'm not going to say anything anymore. I'm done with it. I don't give a fuck. You can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. You can think whatever you want. But if you think that Bitcoin is currently run by miners or that they're going to increase the supply cap, you probably don't want to watch this show because you and I are not alike. That's why everything goes down in price relative to Bitcoin. Exactly, because of the 2.099 million coins or 2.1 quadrillion coins. Hal's take on Bitcoin banks is also the way Bitcoin scales to billions around the world. Exactly. Merchant said, as someone who went all in Bitcoin and makes a living from it, in a time of skeptical views on Bitcoin educators' influences, how do you know you're truly unbiased? And how do you ensure you're not ignoring the downside risk? I mean, because I don't give a fuck if you buy Bitcoin or not. I'm not going to try to convince you to buy Bitcoin. I never have. I talk about the things that I want to talk about. In a time of skeptical views on Bitcoin educators and influencers, well, I definitely wouldn't consider myself an influencer. I would consider myself an educator. That's what I try to do, is educate people, anybody who wants to learn. But I don't tell anybody what to do. Again, I've been telling people for the last 6 months, even before this whole cold card thing happened, is that you need to be very careful and cautious, and that if you don't understand what you're doing with your self-custody, you should not be taking self-custody. But anybody who wants to take on the work required to do it properly, I'm here to help. So I don't know what you're talking about. Not ignoring the downside risk. Don't know what that means. I don't know if you're still here now, but if you want to kind of expand on that, that'd be good. The downside risk. DEI hire. Who is that? Heard people are quitting Bitcoin because of the volatility, compressions, and massive drawdowns. Nah, people are just they don't know what they're doing. We're repeating questions here, I guess. Bitcoin is a very mediocre asset class in terms of performance since 2021. Okay. So don't buy any then. Like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? And although I do agree with you that the fiat exchange value of Bitcoin hasn't really done much lately, and that's what people care about most, there's many, many, many more things about Bitcoin that people should give a shit about. Number one being the sovereignty and not taking shit from anybody and being able to do whatever you want with it without anybody's permission and send it to whoever you want to without a middleman there. It's pretty powerful. Most people don't understand that, including Jackie Tucker, it looks like here. Okay, this is fucking stupid. Dr. K says, stay humble, stack sats regularly, and hodl. But key for that is education and community. Thanks, Jor. This is helpful. Thanks for being here, Dr. K. Okay, looks like just some conversation here. I mean, why wouldn't they all fractionally reserve, and saying they're going to fractionally reserve? Okay, that's money printing. What are we even talking about here? This doesn't fix anything. No, it definitely does. It definitely does. Even a fractional reserve system that's backed by Bitcoin is a million times better than what we have today. We have zero transparency. We have zero accountability. We have zero limits on how much can be created of these units. Zero. Not like 1 or 2, like a percent of it. Zero. So what are we talking about here? And this might not be the case forever, right? I mean, eventually we might get to a point where people feel comfortable enough where they don't even need the banks. But I do believe that in the meantime, between now and then, you're going to have things like banks custodying Bitcoin for people, issuing tokens. Some will be 100% backed, 100%. Some will be fractional reserve. But this is part of the transition that we need to go through. And again, it doesn't need to affect you, other than the value of your Satoshis are probably going to go exponential because all the banks are going to want Bitcoin. You can still use Bitcoin in a peer-to-peer way. You can still use the Bitcoin mainnet. You have sats today. You're going to be at a big time advantage to those who don't. But we still need this to happen for the average person, Joe Sixpack, Sally Soccer Mom, Grandma, to go through this whole transition. Fractional reserve banking with Bitcoin is walking a slippery tightrope with no net. Disagree. We have a fractional reserve bank right now with 0 Bitcoin, and it's fucking horrific. But with Bitcoin, you can verify and you can decide which bank has the Bitcoin, which one doesn't, which ones are verifying it, what's their ratio. You can decide that. We don't have that at all today. There's no competition. You can't even start a fucking bank as this whole thing started with today. Speaking of proof of reserves, how can someone prove they have proof of reserve? How we trust them the Bitcoin they show is belonging to them without trust? Because they have an address or addresses that anybody can verify, and they can sign a transaction showing that they have the private key to that public key and receive address. Is that a question? I don't know. Also, please, if you're gonna ask questions, don't spam the comments. Ask the question once. Oh, another one here that put Joe in front now. Man, people are losing it here. People are losing it. That's okay. We're not. We're on track here. Some folks argue Bitcoin BSV is a real Bitcoin. Yeah, true. Still to this day. It's called delusion. You can't even verify MicroStrategy. I agree. So when you play this out, then if you're somebody who cares about reserves and being 100% Bitcoin backed and verifiable, then you will not invest in MicroStrategy. It's really as simple as that. So basically, peer-to-peer transactions at that point will be dead. No, why? Like, how do you get that from that whole conversation? You have to remember that, yes, it feels like there's a big community of Bitcoiners, but in reality, there's probably less than 1 million people who have ever sent a Bitcoin transaction before. So we're a very small subset of the population. And nobody's taking that away from you. Nobody's going to say, hey, you can't do peer-to-peer Bitcoin transactions. Why? Because nobody has the ability to stop that. That's the whole fucking point of Bitcoin. So if you decide that you don't want to put your Bitcoin in the banks, you can transact peer-to-peer. If you walk into a coffee shop and they have a QR code there, you can scan it and pay with Bitcoin. That's not going to change. But not everybody's like us. In fact, 99.9% of the world is not like us. And as hard as we try to convince them, that's not going to change. So Robert says, just stopping in quickly. Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a great August. Cheers, Robert. Good to see you, my friend. Hopefully you're doing good too. Do you know anyone who lost their Bitcoin because of the cold card thing? No, 0 people. 0. So there's conspiracies that the whole thing was a psyop, and it could have been to drive people away from self-custody. I'm not doubting that people lost Bitcoin. I'm not. I just haven't talked to anybody in person that knows anybody personally who lost Bitcoin. Okay, Jackie Tucker, tired of you. Praetorian, good morning, everyone listening in the background. Good morning, Praetorian. Sincere, good morning. Just the currency exchange costs make it so. I don't know. There's a million different conversations happening here. What's the incentives for banks to give people Bitcoin? What's the incentive for banks to give people Bitcoin? Why not just break the... Oh, I've talked about that. I don't know if you're not listening or if I'm just behind here or you're behind here or what. Why aren't there 100% gold-backed banks today winning over fractional reserve banks today? Exactly, because most people don't care. Because we still live in a fiat-denominated world. We still live in a world that is... The USD is the world reserve currency as of today. Is it always going to be? No, absolutely not. Using Bitcoin as backing instead of gold does not change human nature. You're right. I agree with you. I agree with you. Does Arnie ever come into the room or does he always get distracted by his bed? He comes in. If he really wants to go for a walk or something, he'll come just like literally be right here. That bed's also freaking half his size. That's his bed from when he was a baby. Like I said, I had no idea what was going on until I watched The Big Short. Yeah, that's a good one for people to kind of get an idea of how messed up things are. And I would say this, the movie The Big Short, as bad as that was and the fallout of that, the situation that we're in right now is probably 1,000 times worse. Maybe more. It's laughable, but it's also horrifying because there's going to be some pain. But again, I don't know. Again, I kind of go back to my theory here of I don't think that this is going to, there's no like silver bullet that you can put into this system right now that's going to solve everything and make everything go away. But I do think I still have the theory and the underlying thesis here that, and I don't think it was a coincidence either that Rand Paul, I know he's taking a lot of shit for saying like, trust me, bro. But I don't think it was a coincidence that a couple weeks ago, Scott Bessent was talking about gold, Fort Knox, whether it's there or not, and talking about fiat currencies versus currencies backed by gold. Fox News did a whole walkthrough of in the White House of him going through this. Why? I think they just woke up one day and decided they were going to talk about that. Or maybe there's a reason. That's how this stuff always works. They introduce things slowly, roll things out, and then boom, something happens. And then they're like, oh yeah, well, we gave you some information before we did it. And then yesterday or 2 days ago, Rand Paul came out and said, hey, I went to Fort Knox, all the gold's there. So yeah, I mean, the Bitcoiner in me and in everybody here is like, bullshit. Prove it. We're supposed to just trust you that the gold is there. But again, you have to ask yourself, why? Why is Rand Paul going out and just randomly on a fucking random Monday saying, hey, I went to Fort Knox, all the gold is there? Why? Again, do you think that Rand Paul just woke up on Monday morning and said, you know what? Things are kind of slow right now around the office. I'm going to go out to Fort Knox and tell everybody that the gold is all there. No. Answer to that is no. There's a reason for it. So again, this note here, Federal Reserve note. What happens if the U.S. Treasury, which is actually who has all the gold in Fort Knox, the U.S. Treasury, what if they came out and said, hey, we're revaluing the gold. We're revaluing the gold to strengthen our balance sheet. The actual price of gold is $25,000 per ounce, $15,000 per ounce. What happens to this? Gold holders will be happy, But here's the thing. What happens to this? Goes to zero. It goes to zero. The higher gold goes, the more worthless these Federal Reserve notes become. So then, okay, so gold gets revalued. Who has the gold? The Treasury. Treasury says, well, we just made your fucking fractional reserve, Federal Reserve note worthless. Here's our currency. Our US Treasury dollar is backed by gold. We have the gold. It's backed by gold. It's backed by energy. It's backed by the land that we have. It's backed by AI, Wall Street, Bitcoin. And we're going to actually offer you the ability to trade your dollars that are worth nothing for our new US Treasury dollar. So what happens with that? What happens with that? All of a sudden, you literally just wiped out, pretty much made your $39 trillion or whatever it is, owing to the Federal Reserve. You pretty much just got rid of that. And the implications of that would be substantial. Because we owe money to who, that owes money to who, that owes money to who, that owes money to who. And all those people in between are all taking a little cut of it. And they make a pretty good fucking living off it too, by just literally extracting from people. So what happens then? Maybe the US Treasury dollar is the main for the US, and maybe Mexico has a dollar and a Canadian dollar, but it'll just go, what do you think happens to the Canadian dollar if the US Treasury dollar is announced? So this $1 over here is backed by gold, backed by Wall Street, backed by Bitcoin, backed by silver, backed by oil. And Canada's dollar is backed by a promise from Mark Carney that we will pay you back in our fiat currency, that our debt of all of our new fucking citizens here are going to work to pay taxes that's going to back that dollar. Which dollar is going to be worth more? So then what are countries going to be forced to do? Canadian dollar is not going to last very long if it survives, but the Canadian government or the federal, whoever it is, the Bank of Canada, is going to have to start adding real assets to their balance sheet and backing their currency with that. So I think that that's going to be the smoothest transaction that we could possibly have. And, you know, it just makes sense. It just makes sense. Everything going on right now makes sense that it's going in that direction. So will it happen for sure? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but would I be surprised if it didn't? Yes, very. Because there's just everywhere you look, there's signs pointing towards that actually happening. Again, Scott Bessent talking about it in the White House. Many different things between then and now. Rand Paul, is the gold there? I audited it. It's there. So then all of a sudden you have people out there, again, Bitcoiners are saying, bullshit. Rand Paul, you're full of shit. The gold's not there. What do I think? I don't know. I actually do believe, this is going to sound stupid, but I actually do believe that the US has the gold in Fort Knox. I do. Why? Because they have the biggest military. How could it not be there? You know what I mean? How could it not be there? Did somebody come and take it? Did they pay for it for something? No, they have the ability to create fucking paper money. Why would they ever spend their gold? So yeah, I think it's there. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But the average person is going to say, hey, Rand Paul he was at Fort Knox. Gold's there. US has the gold. This currency is solid. So whether it's there or not, that's another person's, prerogative. Is like, do you want to hold US dollars even if it's backed with gold and silver and Bitcoin and energy and oil and all this stuff? Or you just want to hold your wealth in Bitcoin? Me personally, I'm going to choose Bitcoin, regardless of what the Canadian government says that they have. I don't care. I don't trust them. But again, we're not the average people here. Gray said proof of reserves will be the standard under Bitcoin banking. Good luck with fractional reserve banking then. Exactly. That's a free market. That's competition. That's something we don't have today. And Gray zapped 88 sats for the Visionaries Bank. Thank you, Gray. Hey, missed some more here. Wow. People are active today. Love to see it. I think it's 50-50 miners and nodes. Both are keys to Bitcoin success. Yeah, and just the overall network, the users too. The users, if BlackRock came out and said, hey, we have all this hash power here, we're going to do a soft fork and we're going to change it so that there's a new supply of 22 million versus 21 million because we believe the miners need to be paid better. Okay. So BlackRock, even if they had the hash power, even if they had, somehow had all the hash power, they could do that. But the people like me, like you, like all the users of Bitcoin, we just say, well, we're not using that anymore. What happens to it? The value of it goes down. The miners don't have enough, they don't make enough money to be worthwhile. Like, it's just all related. It's not just the nodes. It's not just the miners. It's not just the users. It's not just the developers. It's everybody. That's the consensus. Everybody has to agree that something is a good idea before there's any changes to Bitcoin. And it's crazy to me that like the combined consensus was like 2% and people are bitching about it. It's like you weren't even close to getting network consensus when you consider all those different components. You weren't even close. So what are you concerned about? And why do you believe that it would be a good idea to fork off and that coin is going to have any sort of value? Why? I just don't understand it. Got to weld myself up a Faraday cage. Shout out to Dr. K. Someone tried to start a bank in Dubai and they literally forced to dissolve it. Yeah, I mean, that's been happening with Caitlin Adams, Caitlin Marsh, Caitlin Adams, Caitlin, is it Adams? Atwood? She tried doing that with her bank. She's been trying to get a license for a decade now, I think, with 100% reserve, and they just won't let her do it. Why? And so for the people in the chat, like Uncle Jimmy here, who are saying that this isn't going to change anything, Caitlin's been trying to do this for a decade in terms of having a bank that's 100% backed by reserves. 100%. Using things like Bitcoin, gold, whatever other assets they want to hold. It probably just won't be Bitcoin right off the hop, but they won't let her. Why? Why won't they let her do it? If it's no threat to their system, if 100% backed bank isn't a threat to their system, why won't they let her do it? Caitlin Long. Thank you, Sin. That's what I was looking for. Caitlin Long. Africa is actually moving back to gold-backed banks. Well, didn't Gaddafi try doing that with their own currency backed by something that killed him? Can't kill Bitcoin. Can't kill Satoshi. Can't kill JFK. I mean, they did kill JFK when he wanted to do something like this with silver. Thanks to the bond market, it definitely is 1,000 times worse than 08. 08 will look like a car accident. That's what I mean. Learning multi-sig right now, Jor. Good man. Yeah, for anybody actually who's interested in that, good call. Good on you. For anybody who's interested in setting up a multi-sig, again, I wouldn't rush into it. I would not rush into it. It's something that should be taken very seriously and slowly. Oh, I didn't upload it yet. But yesterday we actually did our 14th episode in the Visionaries community here, where you have 400 amazing people, Bitcoiners from around the world that have your back and want to help you out. But you also get all the content here. Courses. I'm going to be restructuring this whole thing in the coming months. That's going to be more desirable, I guess, more organized. But for now, we have this course here. In the 14th episode that we did yesterday, it was an intro to multi-sig. So I talked about how to set it up, what the components are, what you need to back up. And it was kind of like the first step towards multi-sig. Again, not something you should do lightly, do in a weekend, do it a one-time shot and pay somebody $5,000 to help you do it? I don't think. You need to understand what you're doing. You have to understand what you're doing. And so this whole course that we've been doing so far this year, you have about, that was an hour. This was an hour and a half. This was an hour and a half, hour and a half. But you already have 14 episodes, so about 20 hours worth of content that will not only just tell you how to do it, but make sure you know all the inner workings of it and why you're doing it. And so yesterday was episode 14, which I'll be uploading later today. And it was the intro to multisig. So if anybody is interested, make sure you join. I think you can still join as a free member, but I would recommend joining as a premium or a VIP member. So you get access to the course and to all other courses. By the way, I'm actually going to be raising the prices too. So I'm going to be putting different materials in the classroom, and I'm going to be raising the price of the course. So there's going to be a specific tier for the digital homestead course, and it's going to go from $20 a month to $40 a month. And I'm probably going to do that in the next week or so once I restructure a few things on here. So you'll still be able to join at the same price of $20 per month, and you'll get access to some content and the community, but you won't get access to the digital homestead course, because I understand how valuable this information is, and the ability to jump in a call and ask any questions that you have to me about your specific setup. It's way more valuable than what we're selling it for. So you're still going to be able to join the same prices today, but in a week from now, it's going to be double. It's going to be like 44, I think, to be joining the digital homestead course, which is leading up to a multisig. That's going to be kind of like the crescendo of the course is a multisig. Bitcoin-backed bank operating out of fractional reserve banking is an oxymoron. No, it's not. It's not. I don't know why you're having such a hard time understanding this. It's not at all. Thought Rand Paul was at Fort Knox and verified the bars. Yeah. Germany wants their gold back. Obama was the worst president ever. I think he was. That's understatement of the year, I think. So this is the, again, if you're watching this later and you don't have the link in the chat there, school.com/88sats. And once you join, so I kind of mentioned there that the course is going to be jumped up to 44 a month in a couple of days. But if you join, you kind of lock in that rate forever. So even if I do end up raising the price, it's not going to like affect you. You're going to still be locked in at that $20 per month rate. So school.com/88sats. I'll probably give people till Sunday to join at that price if they want to, if they're taking their self-custody seriously. Caitlin Long, yes, that's what it was. Thank you, Paulie. Bitcoin shows how pathetic the dollar really was. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of my theory as well. They probably have 10x more than they say. And that's what people are missing in this whole equation. For the last 50 years, the US has literally been able to create money. That's been their main export, as the US is dollars, fiat dollars. Why would you give anyone your gold? And you got the strongest military, the best protection, the best borders, well, up until, but still, none of those fucking people are coming through the borders are going to get into Fort Knox. Yeah, 100%. Gold revaluation incoming. Exactly. It's the only way. It's the only way out for them. Look at the BTC to Japan. Yes, the yen, no doubt. Canada holds 0 tons of official government growth. Exactly. So that currency goes to 0 overnight. And it will. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Intelligence agency created Bitcoin because their enemies all hold all the gold. Maybe. But that doesn't mean it's not fully decentralized. You cannot create Bitcoin, even if an intelligent agency did create Bitcoin, doesn't matter. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Three of five multi-sig is best. Changed my mind. I agree with that. 3 of 5. The only drawback is you got to have 5 people that you where you can leave your keys to. I notice how you never capitalize God. Who's that to? Gold or God? Since as the U.S. United Sats of Bitcoin is governed by 3 branches: miners, nodes, users. These are the checks and balances that keep the network working. Sin gets it. Sin gets it. Unfortunately, many don't, and they're going to trade away their life's work for something different. Okay, I really feel multi-vendor, multi-sig is giving the most safety against black swan events, but yeah, definitely something to take slow. So that's kind of what I spent probably half the show talking about yesterday, like episode number 14, intro to multi-sig. That's kind of like the latest buzzword is like multi-vendor, multi-sig. And again, of course, when you're a Bitcoin company, you want to sell products. Trezor, Ledger, Jade, Bitbox, Seed Signer, they want to sell products, man, because it's not very profitable being Bitcoin only. That's one thing I think we'd all agree on. So there's this narrative going around that you need to have multi-vendor, multi-sig. But again, it doesn't matter what device you're using in your multi-sig. It doesn't. The thing that matters most is how you generated your seed. So you could actually use one device, something like the Cold Card Q. And again, I'm not telling people to do this. But if you understand what's going on here, you could just use this to generate your 24 words with dice, where you're not reliant on Cold Card generating your seed. And you use the dice, you roll 24 times or 100 times, to get your 24 word phrase. You verify that with a couple different websites. You delete that key or that seed, and then you do it again. And so a multi-sig is just 3 private keys that come together and create a new wallet. So it doesn't matter what devices you're using. You don't need different ones. It all matters how you generate your seed. And if you do it properly with dice, then it doesn't matter. You don't need to have 3 different devices. You don't even need to have 3 devices, period. You need one device. I'm confused. Aren't you making my point by saying that Caitlin can't open a 100% backed bank? Yeah, currently she can't. How am I proving your point by that? You're contradicting yourself. You're saying that even if there was a 100% backed bank, most people wouldn't care. But then you're saying they wouldn't let her do that or Simon Dixon do that because they know what the impact that would have on the banking system. I don't know. I'm not following. Exactly. So there won't be a 100% Bitcoin backed bank. Why not? Says who? We started the whole conversation saying how they're encouraging new banks. They're reducing the friction, reducing the state by state regulations. They're making things more clear and simple and a federal regulatory to follow versus a state by state. They're making it easier to do. That's what the whole conversation started with today. They're going to use traditional rails. It's going to be a legislative framework. Yeah. Man, I agree. I'm telling you, like, I'm not telling people that they should give up their self-custody and put their Bitcoin in a bank. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that I'm going to do that, and I wouldn't recommend anybody do that. I'm saying that the average person is never going to self-custody their Bitcoin. I literally have a course that teaches people step by step how to make their self-custody bulletproof. Even after 3 years of recommending cold cards, because of the layers that we had and we always talk about here, there were 0 people that lost any of their Bitcoin because they weren't reliant on their signing device. They had a passphrase. They had a couple wallets. They had a multi-sig. That's why. This is why it takes so much time and understanding to figure out how to do this properly. But most people aren't going to do that. And that's why you need this. Otherwise, Bitcoin will never go anywhere. It has to be reachable to the average person. Buck52 said, Jor, how long did it take you to complete the dice rolls? Probably an hour. Because like I said, I did the first test run essentially to make sure that my cold card had no involvement in the process. So I rolled the dice, I verified it on a couple websites, and then destroyed it once I realized that the RNG from cold card had no influence or no part of the process. So then I redid it 100 and some times, and then I generated some very strong passphrases, and then I separated those passphrases and distributed them. So the dice itself took like an hour, probably not very long. Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't care, but yes, you're right. Over time, literally one funeral at a time, people are going to value real banks, real assets. Because the majority of wealth is held by people who don't understand what fiat money is. That's where we are today. There's communication breakdown happening here. Well, I mean, you're in the fucking comments, the chat, and I'm talking here. So I wouldn't guess that we would be really clear. Anyways, let's get that out of here today. I'm way over time. So big shout out once again to our guy LaughPad. LaughPad is going to be the sponsor of tomorrow's show now, as the biggest zapper of today. Because we don't have sponsors here. 0 sponsors. The people are the sponsors. And so if you feel like sponsoring one show, you can donate the biggest amount. And today that was LaughPad. So tomorrow's show is going to be brought to you by LaughPad. Big shout out once again to Maria 5K, to Mark, Conrad, Sats and Sunsets, Cypher Sats, LaughPad, Cedar Sats, Sin Diesel, Let's Faux Live, Gray, and Kevin with the latest. He says Arnie Bank and Trust Co. Thank you, Kevin. And also to Polly, who sent some sats to the Rescue Dog Fund today. So that's what I got. The people are the sponsors, exactly. White says, I disagree, Jor. I think multi-vendor is important. There can be vulnerabilities beyond the seed. Jade had a vulnerability about a year ago for users who did USB. Yeah, I mean, you're right and you're wrong in a way of like, I'm talking about different things here. So like, as an example, you could generate 3 different seeds on your own, 3 different seeds and keys to your multi-sig, using like a cold card queue or like a seed signer. And then you would just need one device. You could just use your seed signer to sign the transactions and to create the wallet. And then you would reload, you'd import your seed 1 in, delete it. Import number 2 in, sign, do what you got to do, delete it. Import key 3, sign, verify, whatever you need to do, delete it. You don't need 3 different devices for that. That's the point. Yikes, never mind. Have a good day. Well, Jimmy, here's the, because I would imagine it'd be frustrating for you. I get that. Here's my offer to you. If you want to come up tomorrow, I'll put this up. If you're in the chat tomorrow and you want to come up on stage, you don't have to have your video on, but put your audio on and we can actually have a conversation about it. So then there won't be any sort of communication barrier there. I'll offer that to you. So tomorrow, if you're here in the chat, You can spend all night tonight preparing your points or whatever you want to do. And tomorrow you can come up on stage and we'll have a conversation if you want to. I'm not trying to force you into it or, bully you here. I'm saying if you want to have a conversation about it, if you want clarification on what the hell I'm saying here, I'll give that to you if you want. But anyways, we're going to hit the road here. So shout out to Humanama 0930 and T3RQ8, our newest subscribers over in Rumble. And if you've been watching on YouTube and you want to join the rednecks over on Rumble, head over there, subscribe, and show up to Rumble every day. I'd rather just email you or DM or have a private one. Up to you, man or woman. But that's it. Anyways, have yourselves. Matrix said multi-vendor, multi-sig is BS, just a money marketing play. I'm not going to pay $1,000 to secure Bitcoin if I get hacked. Fuck it, Bitcoin is for me. Well, that's on you. Anyways, like I said, if you are somebody who's serious about Bitcoin, if you want to take the next step in your self-custody journey, or you want to become more confident, comfortable, sleep better at night, I highly recommend joining the Visionaries and going through those first 14 episodes. And I think it's going to be a night and day compared to where you are today versus where I think that you might think you need to be to take self-custody of your precious Satoshis. So that is school.com/88 sats. We love to have you in there. It is an amazing, very respectful community of people who want to help and who want to build together. So consider. Anyways, have yourselves a great day. We'll be back here tomorrow. I think, maybe, might not. I might take tomorrow off, but we'll be back here Friday for show. Talk to you then.